a live version. I don't know if anybody's out there, but we're gonna do this for practice run anyway, just to get used to doing live. Let's talk about what's going on. I guess we could start off with probably one of the few things that over the last year that I really got wrong was that I always thought that Ron DeSantis would be the one to knock Donald John out of his socks, especially since Mar-a-Lago and all the stuff that came out about how he screwed up COVID. And quite honestly, I thought that DeSantis was probably smarter than Trump. And perhaps academically, DeSantis is smarter than Trump, but politically, even though Trump is an ignorant, you know what, um, he's got DeSantis beat because DeSantis is not, he doesn't have a personality and he has no ingenuity. He tried to basically out Trump Trump, be meaner than Trump, be nastier than Trump, and you can't out Trump Trump because Trump is a self-made, and I'm not going to say self-made man because that might indicate that he accomplished something in life. But Trump, for whatever he is, for however he does it, nobody can do it like Trump because that is Trump from top to bottom, left to right. Trump is the ultimate con man, even though he is ignorant, even though and with he might lack intelligence, he might lack courage, but all those things he lacks, he makes up for it in just tenacity and meanness. He's a nasty piece of work. But anyway, back to DeSantis. DeSantis is dropping in the polls. Um, he's Trump was always outdistanced. Trump DeSantis was number two in the Republican polls to see who was going to get nominated. And even though DeSantis was ahead of the competition, he's no longer ahead of the competition by as much, and he's still double digit. Trump's lead over DeSantis is double digits, which makes him, Trump far ahead of the rest of the pack. But DeSantis is going backwards, and the pack is closing, and nobody knows how the next indictment is going to shake up stuff. But DeSantis, his backers are backing off. They don't think he can beat Trump, and that's what the people that are backing DeSantis, that's what they really want to see. They want to see Trump removed as the de facto head of the Republican Party, and maybe put a muzzle on the MAGA constituency, even though they need the votes, even though that they want the votes, but they want to put a muzzle on MAGA. They don't want MAGA to be the face of the Republican Party anymore because it is totally out of pocket. It is outrageous. It doesn't accomplish anything. And the rest of the world, the independent voters, uh, the suburban voters, the the educated females voters, they are walking away from MAGA because MAGA is just doing things now that are anti their interests. It's no longer oppressing minorities. It's no longer closing the border. It's all about making you have babies when you don't want to have babies. It's all about banning books, trying to get into your bedroom, uh, making contraception illegal in some states. Even crazy stuff like passing laws, trying to pass laws, anyways, that would make it legal for the state to monitor a woman's period. Or uh, there's like 11 Republican attorney generals, all MAGA attorney generals that are in abortion ban states that are that wrote a letter to President Biden, saying that they were going to pass laws that would allow them to subpoena the medical records of women that are residents of their states that they believe go out of state to states where there are no abortion bans or abortion bans that are less than the ban that are in their state, seeking abortion and reproductive health care that's illegal in their resident state, so that they can get the records and use it to prosecute those women. In other words, if you live in certain states like maybe Alabama or Kentucky or Tennessee or Ohio, and You need an abortion, and you say, "Well, look, I got a cousin that lives in New York, or I got, my auntie lives in Virginia. They still do abortions there. I can go there and get my abortion." Yeah, you can go to the states and get your abortion as long as you can pay for it, because it might be, depending on what health plan you have, there might be a problem getting out of state health care. And once you do that, when you go back, if somebody rats you out, the state has the right to go to whatever state you went to and subpoena the records from the procedures that you had, and they will charge you. That's what they intend to do. I don't know what this big push is to make people have babies. It's just, I mean, it's not like we have a shortage of children in America. Especially, all you got to do is, go to any state adoption agency, and it's almost, I don't want to compare it to the SPCA, but it's almost that desperate. Just go down and show that you got a house big enough, and fill out some paperwork, and they run a background check, and you pay your adoption fee, and off you go. So why is it so mandatory that every woman that gets pregnant must have a baby? I just don't get. I understand the religious aspect, but it's like, if you think about, if you want to make it a law that they must have a baby because of your religious views, what is that going to, what does that change? I mean, um, it's like, if it's a sin, which the Bible says, it may be a sin, depending on how you interpret the Bible, um, they got to answer for that. You don't have to answer for that. You have committed. You didn't kill the baby. You didn't say have it done. You didn't perform the procedure. You don't have to answer for it. That's like, if that's like walking down the street and witnessing a murder. If you want to put it that way, I'm not saying that abortion is murder, but I'm trying to come up with a scenario that you can understand. You walk down the street, you didn't kill that person, you didn't tell the person that killed the person to kill the person. You just happened to be there. So are you responsible? You couldn't stop it. You were too far away. You just happened to be walking by. You were caught by surprise. It was none of your business. That's the basic thing. None of this is none of your business. So why do you want to impose your will on other people like that, all in the name of religion? There's nothing in the Bible that says you got to stand up and say, "Thou shalt not." God said, "Thou shalt not," and on an individual basis, like, we all got to answer for whatever we do, just like you got to answer for what you do. And being an advocate for anti-abortion, that's not one of the things that you got to do. Concentrate on not lying and not stealing, and not killing your neighbor, adult. Not walking, breathing people. Concentrate on charity, helping those that are less fortunate, like a lot of kids that have been born because somebody didn't take the option, and now they can't afford to raise their own children because of the economy. Might not even be their fault, but they just can't do it. And all these people are crying about, you can't kill the babies. They also crying about, I don't want a tax increase to take care of the babies that don't have mothers and fathers, or that have derelict mothers and fathers. And it's just one thing, like it says, one hand washes the other. It's not making any sense. But let's get off of that. Back to DeSantis. It seems that people are not buying his woke agenda. I guess they or anti woke agenda. They getting tired of hearing DeSantis say woke 17 times in 5 minutes. Everything is woke. Everything he doesn't like is woke this, woke that, and woke is where, and Florida is where woke goes to die. Well, it seems that maybe because of DeSantis, DeSantis is the Satan, the sanctimonious, whatever you want to call him, the man, Puss in Boots. Remember him in the white boots? Well, it seems that Florida has some serious problems, and DeSantis and his administration is doing jack shit because, one, just like his idol Trump, DeSantis has not filled some key positions in the state. I don't know, maybe so he can micromanage everything, or maybe he can prove that what a great leader he is, and maybe he just doesn't give a shit. But anyway, um, Florida, there's some things that are out of, DeSantis couldn't have stopped it because it's, nature, but he's not doing anything to help Floridians survive the effects, or, you know, weather the storm, or whatever you want to put. He's being an ineffectual leader. He does not care about his citizens. The only time he cares about his citizens is when he can come up with something else to screw the people that he doesn't like. And we won't get into who he doesn't like, but he's done a pretty good job of erasing Black history, so that may be an indication. But right now, the climate change, which DeSantis denies, uh, the water off the coast of Miami, the from Central Florida on down, to the Keys, is average temperature of like 101 degrees, 8 feet down. 101 degrees. That's sauna temperature. That's hot tub temperature. Uh, and that's what the water surrounding, the Atlantic coast of Florida is right now. The Gulf Coast isn't much better. I think that's like in the 90s. Florida has been trapped in a heat wave now for going on a month. Um, there are, even if it was, I mean, even if it wasn't for the heat wave, there would probably be a shortage of workers anyway, because DeSantis and his anti-migrant bill. Hey, all the migrants, legal and illegal, said, you know what, screw you, because this is not, we're not playing this Nazi concentration camp stuff, and we out. So now Florida farmers have crops in the field rotting. That's going to be an economic disaster. We're probably even more, a bigger disaster dollar wise, immediate effect. Florida was in the middle of a construction boom, and two things have kind of like put a crimp in that. Because of Florida's lack of effort to battle climate change, uh, home insurers, big insurance groups have moved out of Florida because all of the recent natural disasters, the hurricanes, basically have, the amount of damage. It's in the billions of dollars over the last 5, 10 years, and Florida's not doing anything to, you know, uh, help change the situation. They're not paying attention to climate change. They're not coming up with new building codes to make, the structures, to mandate that structures be, more weather resistant. So the insurance companies are moving out. There's like, Florida only has a few homeowners insurance companies that actually write policies in the state of Florida now, which has driven the cost of homeowners insurance, which everybody should have. In some places they have to have, because the banks that carry the loans demand it, can't get an insurance. They can't afford it, or it's just nobody there that will insure them. And DeSantis is not doing a damn thing about it. Farmers moved out. A lot of others, all states, State Farm, they, I don't know if they've moved out, but they've announced that, they're thinking about it. Uh, then you got the ongoing battle with the mouse, Walt Disney. And it seems that Walt Disney hasn't announced that it's going to shut down its facility or that it's moving. But there's a lot of things going on in Disneyland. There's, like, old rides, that old attractions that maybe have outlived their usefulness, that are being torn down, but there's nothing new going in their place. There are shops that the leases are expiring in different places, like in Epcot Center, and in, Disney World, the main port, restaurants, souvenir shops, clothing stores. they're shutting down, and the leases are not being renewed, and there's no new customers moving in. So for some reason, maybe it's because of Ronnie. I don't know. They say Disney World is starting to look like a ghost town. Now, where they may go, I don't know. There's big rumors about South Carolina might be next because South Carolina is pretty temperate all year round, and it's right there on the coast, and it offers some of the same attractions that the Florida location did. But we don't know. Other than that, it seems that Florida has malaria, has like the biggest, the fastest rising rate of malaria in the United States. Also, believe it or not, leprosy. Leprosy. Florida has the highest number of reported cases of leprosy in the country, and I thought that leprosy was like didn't happen in the United States. I thought it was like one of those like Fiji Island type things, or, coast of Africa, some type crap like that. But it seems that leprosy is a real thing in the United States, and there are cases every year. And the biggest believed cause of leprosy in the United States is a bug that armadillos carry. But the people that are coming in with leprosy in Florida have, when CDC talks to them, I would say, like, maybe the Florida State Department of Health might be talking to them too, but DeSantis gutted that. So there's like nobody, there's no, the people that used to handle, rising diseases and investigate, they're not there anymore. So they can't do nothing. So it's basically all on the CDC. And so Ron DeSantis scores more points. Um, Ron is just, he wanted to be the ultimate Republican meanie, and it's coming back to bite him in the ass as it should. And that's not mentioning the legal troubles that he's starting to run into because certain people in his administration are under investigation for certain things, and his entire administration is because of his anti-woke policies and don't say gay policies. DOJ, they're all in the federal court, and we got to see what happens with that. Let's get off of Ron DeSantis. That's enough of Ronnie. I guess if you go to Ronnie, let me update my prompter here. I'm kind of roughing it. Yo, we in Florida, so we might as well deal with the other big meanie in Florida. That's Donald Trump. I mean, Trump. Okay, he's running for president. He lost his last election, even though he said it was rigged, and he says he won. The big lie, the big lie still goes on because you'd be surprised. It's like a third of the Republicans, registered voting Republicans, at least the ones that voted in the last election, believe that election was stolen for Trump. They believe that Trump actually won that election, that Joe Biden is not the legitimate president. That's kind of, I mean, that's really crazy when people have that kind of disbelief connected with the electoral system in the United States, especially for the office of president. I mean, there's been incidents of electoral rigging, but not this late in not late 20th century, not 21st century, and definitely not when you're talking the whole nation voting for president. It's hard enough now to rig a local election when you're only talking tens of thousands of votes for local officers, local elected positions. It's no more. Very few places use paper ballots. It's basically all electronic. It's early voting. Maybe there might be some questions about early voting, vote by mail, but it's still the loopholes are not big enough, or the areas that could be exploited are not large enough to swing a major national election, especially for the office of president. Trump's own people, some of them were just cowed by Trump and like didn't want to take the tongue lashing. and wanted to get Trump's foot from out between their butt cheeks. So they said, yeah, it was rigged. No evidence, no real evidence. Like I think Giuliani got like 60 different cases in the court, and all of them were thrown out completely except for one on one point, and I think it was in Pennsylvania, and the trial lasted about 30 minutes before the judge said, no, you haven't proven your case. Get the hell out of my courtroom. Um, and speaking of Giuliani, he's done. He basically cut his own throat. He down in Georgia would testify before the grand jury with Bonnie Willis. They were talking about the harassment of the election workers in Georgia, particularly the mother-daughter combo, where Giuliani stood up and testified that they had them on video opening up uh, boxes from underneath the table, throwing votes, in to be counted, and actually doing drugs. He ruined their reputation. The women got death threats. They had to move out of their homes. All kinds of just crazy crap, just because Giuliani wanted to use two women, actually who happened to be black, as scapegoats to have play pin the tail on the donkey with. And he's saying, "Yeah, I did it, but so what?" And that's how he looks at it. So Giuliani deserves everything that Bonnie Willis has for him, and I really believe she has something special for him, along with his buddy Donald John. Now, um, Trump himself, of course, he's full of bluster. He's so full of bluster. He's just as full as his dirty diaper. But Trump, you can see the chinks appearing in his armor. He knows that he's cornered. There's just too many cases. One case at a time, fine. A little here, a little there, rape case here, fraud case there. But just like maybe they can overlap a little, but he can handle it. But he has major cases. I mean, cases that could give him years in prison. And there is a difference between being the president and not being the president. This is why he's so desperate to get back in the White House, because he thinks if he gets back in the White House, it'll give him time, it'll give him breathing room to figure out how to keep his ass out of jail. But if he doesn't get nominated, or if he gets nominated and doesn't win, all of that goes to nothing, and he will go to jail because the gravity of the charges that they have against him. I mean, he said he could kill somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it, and maybe at one time he could have, but the last time he went to New York, they were not that happy with him. I mean, anytime the guard doesn't hold the door open for the former president of the United States, these people have some serious animosity against you. And Trump did not treat New York fair anyway. So there's a lot of animus about Trump in New York. That's why he's saying he wants the one time he was talking about the change in venue, because he said, I can't get a fair trial in New York because people hate me. Well, buddy, you did that to yourself, and I think you can get a fair trial, because how fair can it be to see that you're guilty? Because everybody, I mean, you already admitted it. Like, so all you got to do is go show up and take your medicine. As far as the federal trial in Mar-a-Lago, the documents case, the espionage, the obstruction of justice, all that, it's pretty much cut and dried, and it's pretty much handwriting on the wall. But the biggest factor, the biggest drawback is, well, it's two big drawbacks. One, because it's in Florida, and right now, even right now, that is one of an area of Trump's staunchest supporters, biggest concentration of Trump people. So if you select a jury, are you going to be able to get 12, actually 14, because I believe federal courts use two alternates. They might go to three alternates because of the gravity of the trial. So, are you going to be able to find 15 people that are going to be able to hear the evidence and be not be uh, biased for Trump or even biased towards Trump? That's another consideration. There's a lot of people that hate Trump. The other thing is the judge in the trial. Is she going to be impartial? Which up to this point has been a question because she started out bending over backwards trying to get the whole thing thrown out in the beginning after the initial raid on Mar-a-Lago. Or is she going to she didn't recuse herself, so by some strange coincidence, because it's however the arraignment sheet was filled out, her name got thrown into the hat and pulled off the wheel because her and the magistrate handled the first thing, and now Eileen Cannon is supposed to conduct the trial. One, a lot of people say she shouldn't even be there because she doesn't have the kind of experience to handle a trial of this magnitude. Two, she's already shown bias and she should recuse herself if she had any ethics. Question is, will she conduct the trial in a manner at least close enough? Because the legal experts say on both sides, Trump people and former DOJ people say that all she has to do is sit there and basically let the trial run. Don't get carried away by Trump's lawyers' ridiculous motions. Don't show any bias. Just do her job, and the jury will take care of the rest if they can find a valid jury. Now, will that happen? Probably not. She seems to be pretty committed to, Trump for whatever reason. I don't know. I can't understand how an old fat ugly man with a mushroom can keep all of these people, especially women, uh, just drooling over him. He doesn't really have any money, and even though he's spending his PAC money for his defense, he's getting drained left and right. So I mean, what does he have to offer? And if he doesn't, if he even if she cuts him loose and he doesn't win the presidency, what does he have to offer? Anything? The question is, one of the questions I have is like, how long before Melania just takes Barron, packs her bag, and goes back to whatever she came from? Or moves in with mom and daddy back in DC. That's where they are now. Chain migration. They're just citizens. Chain migration, which Trump tried to do away with, but it was good enough for his in-laws. So I don't know, but let's just keep going because I'm tired of talking about Trump. We could talk about Trump for the next 3 days because that guy, he just doesn't know when to quit. Um, well, before we get away from Trump, uh, what's up, Bill? Glad to see you, my man. Glad you joined in. Um, I do have one person, my buddy Bill. Yeah. Let's get back to like the DC trial thing, but that's gonna be the big case because that's the insurrection case. If there's anything like close to treason, which is insurrection, that's where if like a lot of time uh might come out of that trial. And I think that is the one case that Trump really fears, or maybe it's the total weight of all the cases combined. He knows that as dodgy as he is, he's not going to beat all of these cases, and not being the president, or if he gets found guilty before the nomination process for the GOP, he may not get the nomination, or he may not win the election, and he may not be president, and that means that he will go to jail. It's a whole lot of maybes. But Trump's an old man. Maybe God will help him out. I don't know. The thing with the DC case, well, with all the cases, now he's got so many indictments or potential indictments which are pretty much a certainty. His whole schedule, how is he going to have time to campaign? You know, because he's going to be in court, out of court, here, there. He's got D.C., he's got Florida, he's got Georgia. He might get involved in Michigan because of the elector. They've been indicted. The fake electors in Michigan. If they tie Trump directly into the fake elector scheme, then maybe Michigan will bring some charges against him. It's not looking good for Trump, and no matter how you look at it. And I guess maybe it's not looking good for the country if you think about him having a chance, which he legitimately does, of being president of the United States all over again. And will we survive the next 4 years under Trump if we have to do that? I don't think so. Let's keep going. Yeah. Oh, one last thing on Trump. He's got a rally scheduled in Erie, Pennsylvania, and Erie says no way until you pay us for the last rally 5 years ago. You had the money, you had millions of dollars in your campaign fund, and you owed us a funky $35,000, and you didn't pay that. So no Cheetos for you until you pay us out $35,000. You pay us up $35,000, you can have your rally. Oh yeah, and you got to pay in advance this time for the security services. Getting off of Trump. Outside of the politics with DeSantis and Trump, the Republican Party is pretty much in maybe in disarray. Hey, Bill, thanks for the compliment. Love this channel. Is Biden going to pardon his son? I don't think. That's a good question. I was going to talk about the Hunter Biden thing. I don't think Biden will pardon his son because even though I'm pretty sure he wants to, but Biden wants to hold a modicum of decency surrounding the office of the presidency. I'm pretty sure he's. I mean, it, most of us, if we were in that position and we still loved our kids, which I think he obviously does love his kid, the only son he has left. I think he would love to pardon him, but he knows that that would not look good for him, his legacy as president, and it would just, maybe even doom the, whoever the next Democratic candidate for president will be. Now, this thing with the judge not taking the plea deal and forcing. Well, she didn't force him to. He could have pled guilty, but he chose to plead not guilty because he didn't get the deal that he wanted. I think there might be some shenanigans behind that. Another female Trump appointed judge, and like I said before, I don't know what power Trump the mushroom has over these females, especially female Republican judges that he put into office. Just I guess it's the loyalty thing. But it's crazy that uh, the legal experts say that okay, maybe the deal might have been a little soft, but it's still in the ballpark with deals that people of Hunter Biden's status get all the time with cases with the same similar type charges. The tax evasion charges were probably the most serious, and they made a payment agreement with that. The gun charge, I mean, for you or me, or let's say people in the middle, people everyday working stuff, it could have been serious, but for people on the Biden level, that was about par for the course. And he saved the government the cost. He was going to save the government the cost of a trial by just making the plea deal. That's what we do every day in court. Save the state money. You say go ahead. Confess to what you did. We'll cut the sentence, and everybody will be happy. You'll get to get out sooner or later, or you might not even have to go in, and the world goes on. But this judge said that both sides, the prosecution and the defense, were screwed up and not being clear about their intentions, so she wasn't going to accept the plea deal. It happens, but it don't happen that often, and especially at this level. We'll just have to wait and see. And speaking of slaps on the wrist or not getting serious penalties for what they did, it seems that Carly Russell in Alabama, the I see a baby in a diaper walking by on the interstate at 9 o'clock at night, and I disappear, and then eventually it all fell apart, and she never really came out and said it was her fault. Her lawyer came out and issued a statement, and her family seems to appear to be kind of nutty, rich but nutty, and she appears to be a spoiled little bitch, and probably not really showing a whole lot of remorse except for a few words about please don't judge me, God will judge me, blah 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 blah, and not really impressing anybody, but she upset the whole nation because for once the nation pulled together and did what they were supposed to do. Law enforcement did what they were supposed to do, and the nation, everybody was concerned about this one black woman that could have been abducted in the middle of the night, the baby that could be missing in the middle of the night, and it turned out to be a lie. And if you think that some people are not going to use this to cause repercussions and consequences when the next time a minority person goes missing, and that's human trafficking, missing people, it's minorities left and right, and gay and trans people left and right. These are the ones that turn up missing. And the reason they become targets so easily are because the people that commit these crimes know that they have a better chance of getting away with it because in certain places, in certain cases, law enforcement is not going to give these people a serious look. It's fill out the paperwork, go knock on a couple of doors. Sorry, we can't find your child. We can't find your son. We can't find your daughter. Maybe something will turn up. Maybe a body will show up in a ditch 5 years down the road. But Carly, they pulled out all the stops, went, you know, balls to the wall, and the bitch was lying. What are you gonna say? What are you gonna do? Um, I mean, this world, this country, the people. I mean, we still are. We have so many mass shootings now. Unless it's like five or more people, and a mass shooting is actually four people shot at the same time. Unless there's like five or more people, or a whole bunch of people shot, or dead people, it doesn't even make the national news. It might make the local news. It should make the local news, but it doesn't make the national news anymore. When a mass shooting hits the national news, you know that there's 12, 15 people dead, or that there's a madman, out in the street, mad person out in the street, just blasting everybody. But it's coast to coast, north to south. It's just gun violence is just an inherent part of this country right now, and the nation. That's another thing that divides the nation. One side is extreme Second Amendment, like I have the right to bear arms, blah 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 blah, and you can't infringe upon that. And then you have the other side that like, oh no, thou shalt not kill. Okay, and then you got people, normal people that are in the middle, that either own guns but have no intention of going out blowing up the school bus, or really want to see something done about people that are, you know, going out with ARs and high powered rifle, semi automatic and automatic weapons. That a lot of people ain't really supposed to have, but somehow there's a whole bunch of them out there. We don't know what to do anymore. I mean, some of us just own guns because we don't want to get blown away by the people that have illegal guns. Legal gun owners just to protect themselves. That's a valid point. But a lot of us realize that if they tighten gun laws, which they should. Some people that have guns should not have guns. That's just the bottom line. And Congress is useless. They're too busy wrapped up in these penny ante bullshit, like, protecting gas stoves, or let's see how many migrants we can put on a plane and ship them to whatever part of the state or to another country, and not do anything really constructive about the border crisis except put razor wire in the Rio Grande and watch pregnant women get tangled up and have miscarriages, or instruct the state troopers to push people back into the water so they can't set foot on dry land, or governors in states that are thousands of miles away from the border sending their National Guard troops there to do nothing for 30 to 90 days, just to show, you know, solidarity, or their, to build up their own rep among the MAGA crowd, so that when, they decide to run for president, that they'll have that rep, that swag already built up. And speaking of that, I'm talking about Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia. Since Trump's decline and looks like DeSantis is going to crash and burn, a lot of big donors are looking at Youngkin because Youngkin is one of them. He was a hedge fund manager, and Youngkin probably is now. I don't know. Hindsight is 2020, like they say. But looking at Youngkin and looking what he's doing to Virginia and the type of things he's getting away at Virginia, Youngkin is probably the slimiest and the dirtiest. And what's going to get Youngkin over is that Youngkin knows how to make money legit, legitimately so far that we can tell. But the problem with Youngkin is once that money is made, he looks at it as it's his to distribute the way he wants to. In other words, the most of it, the majority of it goes to the people he wants it to go to, regardless of whether they need it or not, because he's Glenn Youngkin and he is the governor. And he's going to, if he makes it and wins the White House, that's the way he's going to govern. He's Glenn Youngkin, he's the president, and what he says goes. So, to wrap it all up, I'm not sure where we stand. I'm not even sure how we stand or why we're still standing. But we still here. It's still the sun's still going to come up tomorrow. As far as I know, it might be 199 degrees in hell. But we got to live in this country, so we got to find the answers to some questions, because the way it is now, there's no way. There's no way that we can survive, that democracy will survive, that the people will survive. Well, wish I could come up with some better stuff to say. I'm gonna try to dig up a happier note because I'm gonna do this again next week. Maybe people will look at the recorded version of this and figure that it's worth checking out. But Bill, brother, I thank you. You always, we like that. Thank you, you family, man. Um, Spread the word. People that see this, spread the word because I'm serious. You want to be serious with me? Join me next time.